Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Coffee Time with Byron. I am your host, Byron. This is episode number 91. We are currently live on YouTube, available next day on all podcasting apps Anchor, Spotify, Google, iTunes, iHeart, you name it. Alongside me is former NHL and minor league player Dave Ling. How are you tonight? And thank you for joining us.
I'm doing good. Yep. No, everything's good here. Waiting for the snow to go away and get some sun out.
I bet. Yeah. So, are you still? Where are you currently? Are you in Canada where it is snowing up there, or are you down somewhere down here in the U.S. where you
No,
still getting?
right now I'm on the east coast of Canada, so there's still some snow. It's not snowing, but there's still snow on the ground.
Damn, that's crazy. You would think it would stop snowing by now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, we're hoping it's getting better and better each year. So who knows? Maybe we'll have weather like them where you are soon.
Now, to my knowledge, okay, tell me if I'm wrong, because obviously Wikipedia is not trustable, but it's the only thing I could dig up on you. It says you're currently a free agent. Are you still playing, or are you actually retired? What's the deal
Well,
with that?
well, just I never announced a retirement. You know who wanted to hear it. So, yeah, I'm retired.
Okay, you're
Just
retired. That's what I thought. I mean, you started a long time ago in '93. You were in the entry draft. You went seventh round. So tell us about that. Did they tell you where you were going to go? Did you know where you were going to go, or did you expect higher or lower? How did that whole draft process work for you?
Well, I was playing in Kingston in the OHL at the time, and I was rated in the seventh round. I think rated in the area where I was going, but my agent said, there's a chance you might go. There's a chance you might not go. It's back in the day when you needed to be 6 feet, and I wasn't 6 feet, and I'm still not 6 feet. But I did end up. It was in Quebec City. I did end up going to the draft with my dad, my grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
and my brother, and I ended up getting drafted, and it was in Quebec City. I got drafted by the Nordiques, so it was a thing that I'm glad I got to go to and didn't miss for sure.
Which did you find more difficult? Because you were all over the place in the independents to the minors and then eventually to the NHL. So, which did you find more difficult on your road to the NHL?
Well, yeah, it was all a process. I felt like when I was younger that I did have the ability to get there, and I just didn't get a break. I got a game here and there, and then it took about 6 or 7 years till I got a year and a half up in the NHL, and it was a battle, but there was a couple times where I could have left and went to Europe and gave up on the NHL dream, but I stuck with it and thought that there might be a chance, and it ended up paying off. A lot of people don't get to play one game, and I got to play 93. So it's something that you dream about, and I got to do it.
Now, like you said, unfortunately, you got to play in less than 100 games. And like you said, that's more than anybody else, more than I can even say because I didn't play any. But unfortunately, you got to play in just 100. But you got to play more in minor league. Now, did you want to play more in the NHL? What happened there? Like, I know you wanted to go back to the NHL. Did you just not get any offers to go back to the NHL?
Well, the year that I did, I played a year and a half. Then the next year was a lockout year, and I think there was 200 and some players that played the year before, and then after the lockout, ended up not playing again. So it was I was getting older. I was 30, and I was serving a role that was, a fourth line guy that for sure you can interchange with a younger guy and give them more experience. So I understood, and I knew it was time for me to head to Europe, and I ended up going to Russia at the time. It wasn't the KHL then; it was the Super League, and I played a couple years there, and then came back again. But I did go over for the money. That Russia was the spot where you made the most money outside the NHL. So that was one of the reasons. It's not for the beautiful country for sure, uh, but the lockout year in the American League was probably talking to historians even now, like it was one of the best years in the American League because of all the NHL players that were locked out and ended up coming and playing in the American League. So it was a, Spezza was there, Mike Camilleri, the Stalls, like there was a bunch of NHLers, and it was a good year at that.
Now, what? Tell me the most. Tell me the most that you remember about that lockout year, because I remember it vividly. Because of course my Bolts won the Stanley Cup after that year against the Calgary Flames, a good series at that. Went 7 games, and it was on ESPN before the ESPN got its finally rights back, and then they lost their rights, and it went to NBC and et cetera, et cetera. So take us through that whole lockout. You as a player and the other players, what were you guys told during that lockout? Because I'm sure it had to be killer on you guys. I'm sure you guys wanted to play, but that whole year, you guys missed a whole year for what?
Yeah, I know, and that's part of the collective bargaining agreement, the ups and downs, and you understand that every once in a while there is going to be a stoppage in the game just to make sure one, the players are being looked after coming up, and the old guys are being pushed out, but it's part of the process. And I do remember we were getting a stipend, which was a payment from the NHL, even though we were still getting a salary in the American League. Everyone that played the year before and met certain criteria was getting a stipend, they called it, and that was it wasn't your NHL salary, but it definitely was better than $0.
That's for sure. Yeah. So at least you got to play in the minors then. So that I guess, like you said, that is something. I know it's not the big leagues, but hey, compared to baseball, I'm sure they didn't let the minors play when they had their lockout back in the '90s. So I mean, at least your league allowed you guys to play.
Yeah, and but from what I understand, and from I don't know firsthand, but I do know that the NHL and hockey take a little bit better care of the American League and the minors more than the baseball players do, and you can make a pretty good living in the American League, and I have heard that it's a tough go if you're in AAA and in baseball. It's not the same. So you got hats off to the NHL and the hockey guys.
Now, do you ever see another lockout happening in the NHL? I know we've just had one, like you said, like 12, 13, 14 years ago. Do you see another one coming anytime down the line?
Yeah, you always do. It's the only leverage that when you are trying to leverage one side to the other. It's really the only leverage that you have, and no one wants to see it. But sometimes it's part of the process, and no one wants to see it. But there'll either be a lockout or a stoppage at some point, and hopefully it's not. It's usually near the end of the collective bargaining agreement, and I don't know when that's up. So
Now, the Olympics had just passed, and unfortunately, the NHL did not allow their players to go over and play for their countries. Um, Now, in the time that you played, were you offered any time to go to play for Team Canada, your country, or and if so, would you have gladly taken it to play in the Olympics?
yeah, it was. I kind of joke with some buddies there with the Olympics because it is the guys that are outside the NHL that are playing, and I joke around saying that if it was 10 years ago, maybe I would have got the chance, and that would have been another dream come true because I don't know about America, but every Canadian kid wants to play in the Olympics and score that goal and whatnot. But I did have the opportunity to play for Canada in different international tournaments. One year I got asked to play in the Spengler Cup, and my team in Russia wouldn't let me go. And then but now they've changed that rule where if your national team does ask you, they have to release you and let you go. So that I lost out on that opportunity. And then another time I got to play a few games in international for Canada. So I'd love to play more, and I would have loved to play more, but at least I got to wear the Canada flag one game.
Did you watch any of this past Olympics? Women,
Yeah,
women,
I watch all hockey. I love watching.
women's hockey dominated. That tells you something about how far women's hockey has come along, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, I enjoy watching the women's. They battle and they compete, and the structure of the game is so good, and the talent level is rising each year. And it's I just remember watching on TSN that there's a female goalie that played in the Quebec League, which is the major junior in Canada, and it's a stepping stone from kids going to the NHL. So it's a big honor, and it's something that women in hockey should be proud of.
Now, obviously, you didn't have. They just started the outdoor games recently. I want to say about 5, 6 years ago, they had their first outdoor games. Obviously, in your career, they didn't have them around. But
You know what I did get to
huh?
play in one. I got to
Go
play
ahead.
in one. I forget the year. It was probably 12 years ago.
Oh, you did.
I was playing in Providence. Yeah, we played the Rangers and Bruins were playing at Yale the night
Oh,
after. I was in the American League, and Providence played the Rangers farm team on a Friday night, and then the outdoor game, or Saturday night, and then the out game was on Sunday. It was at Yale University, and the Bruins were playing the next night. And I was with the farm team with the Bruins, and it was freezing cold, and the experience. You know, I was glad I got to experience the outdoor game because it is. It definitely is different, and it has a different feel to it, and it was cold.
yeah. Would you rather prefer those outside? Would you rather prefer playing in there or indoors when
Oh,
it's
definitely. You know, I wouldn't want to do a whole year outside, but a game here and there is fun. It brings you back to the feeling of when you're on the pond as a kid.
Yeah, that's how it all first starts, isn't it? Especially up there in Canada. That's how it first started, hockey, right?
Yeah, you know what? I live in an area, and I just remember you say that your Lightning won the cup. I was at the when they won because my buddy was Brad Richards, and we're from the same province in Canada. So I was there when they won. It was pretty surreal.
I know. Funny that you said that because I've been trying to get him on my podcast. He was one of my favorite Lightning players
Yeah, I
growing
don't know
up.
if you get a hold of him. I can't get a hold
No,
of
I
him.
know. I'm just saying he was one of my favorites. So
No, he's a good player.
he was.
He's. I think there's argument that he could be in the Hall of Fame. There's argument that he shouldn't. So he's
I think he's still
right on
playing
that line.
too. I think he's playing now for the Bruins.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think he's still playing. So he's had a pretty damn good career. And if he don't make it into the Hall of Fame, something's wrong with there. I got to agree with you on that. He's got to make it in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
He's got to. So your call up, I believe, was with the Canadians, correct? That was
yeah,
your first NHL action.
yeah.
Take us through that day when you were first told you were going to play for the Montreal Canadiens. Who was there with you, and did you have goosebumps like everybody else does during their first debut professionally?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it was the day before Rajan Ul, the GM of the Canadians, called me and said, you know, you're going up to play, and it was Saturday night in Montreal, which is one of the meccas in Canada for hockey, and it was hockey night in Canada against the Boston Bruins. So it was something special. You know, my dad was there. He ended up getting interviewed on national TV on the first game, and I remember going into morning skate, and you, you're so nervous. I don't think I made a pass. I don't think I picked up a pass. I felt like, oh my god, these guys are too good. I shouldn't be here. And then as soon as the puck drops, you still have the nerves, but it kind of your muscle memory takes over, and you just start to play the game. And then the next day in the paper, there's a picture of me hitting Ray Bork, which is again, it looks like I smash him into the boards, but little if the pitcher could play, I was falling down after. But I have that picture hung up on my wall, and it's a keepsake just for memory of that time.
And go figure, go figure you say that you make your debut against a team that you ended up playing for. Not too many players can say that. You got to play for the Bruins.
Yeah, you know what? I played a long time. I got to play with a lot of teams. So
Yeah, I mean, would you say though? Would you say that hitting him, since you got to keep that moment picturized? Would you say that was your moment, that your best moment in hockey would be remembered, is that hit on Ray Bork?
yeah, it's one of them. But when I reflect back, one's getting drafted in the NHL, one's your first game, which hitting Bork is part of it, and scoring your first goal in the NHL. So those are the three things that I'm sure winning the Stanley Cup would surpass all that, but I didn't get there. So I don't have that to reflect on.
How close were you for those years? Because Canadians were good, so were the Bruins. How close were you to ever making it to the playoffs, though? How
Well,
close?
the most I played in the NHL was with Columbus, and they were just a newer team, and we didn't even make the playoffs. So I was a far way away. Uh, but not every people play a long time and don't even get a chance to hoist the cup either. So it was an honor. It's great memories to reflect on, but you still do wish you could hoist the Stanley Cup.
Now, I ask all my hockey players this that I have on. I'm just curious what they would say. I got to ask you too. If you won the cup, I hear stories all the time of what players do with the cup after they win it. And everybody gets to spend the night with the cup or do whatever they want with the cup. What would you have done with the cup if you had won it?
I don't know, but I know that people would have had an awful fun time.
Oh yeah, I mean, latest one I remember was Ovechkin. He slept with it.
Yeah, no, and he was awesome. He didn't care what the public image or the public perception. He was awesome. He was swimming in the fountains. I love watching it. Love watching him show a little bit of emotion. I'm sure, as people would would claim, I might have been made the TV as well.
Now let's talk about your last NHL game. Did you know right then and there that it was going to be your last NHL game, or did you want to come back into the NHL?
Oh, I definitely. Last year I wanted to come back in the NHL, but I I wasn't hurt. I wasn't too old, so retirement wasn't in my mindset at the time. I always thought that I could play in the NHL, but I did come in terms of reality and know that it was time to go and play in Europe. And you can. I played a long time in Europe, and you can make a pretty good living outside of the NHL, and you get paid to see different parts of the world, and that experience in itself is one that you can't duplicate just by traveling even. So I do regret not playing as much games in the NHL, but I do reflect on a great career.
Now, obviously, you played in Canada and you played overseas in countries that are known for hockey as their main sport. How do you think the U.S. Do you think they're close enough talent wise to compete with these other countries? Because here in the US, hockey is not the main sport. It's baseball or football. Those two are the main ones. Well, maybe I won't say baseball no more because I think basketball has surpassed that. But you got those sports. You, like I said, you from Canada. Your Canada hockey is the number one, and you played in Russia, which is number one over there, hockey, and etc. All over Europe, which is hockey is number one over there too with soccer. How far do you think the U.S. has come to match your guys' level of talent in either
You know,
NHL
you know,
or what?
when I first started, the numbers were a little lopsided, even compared from Canadian to U.S. players in the NHL, and I think the gap is closing, and I think that U.S. is one of the powerhouses in international hockey, and the players, the gap between the Canadian and the U.S. players is closing. Canada does first. They do win a little bit more in the international play, but not at all age groups. And there's a lot of good American players now. The NCAA, and I think one aspect is the NHL growing into different states. You're seeing kids from Florida playing the NHL now. You're seeing kids and sometimes it's ex NHLers kids or whatnot. But you're seeing a lot of minor hockeys that normally wouldn't be in the situation that they're in, and making players from there go to the NHL. So I think it's a plus that the NHL expanded it like they did, and there's players coming. You'd look at Austin Matthews, who's from Arizona. Like 15 years ago, you would never see that. So it's a hats off, and it's a hats off to the U.S. because the U.S. is definitely producing some great talent. Austin
So
Matthews might be outside of Ovechkin, might be the best purest scorer the game has ever seen. So it's something that that has grown, and you're just going to see the gap close and close.
Yeah, because like you said, back in the '90s till when you in the early 2000s before the lockout, like you said, talent was pretty much overseas, or I mean, it was crazy. I didn't know any pretty much any US players at all. And I grew up in that era. It was I mean, it's just nowadays watching the game, I still do, but there's a lot more like you said. It's awesome to see. I mean, because I know growing up, hockey is just like baseball or whatever. With the travel leagues, it's expensive. I mean, the equipment and etc. Travel is expensive to play, and I know that took a lot of Americans who can't afford that away from the game for so long. Don't you think?
Yeah, and it again, it's good to see, and it's good to see like different countries that are improving, because 20 years ago Canada was by far, the powerhouse, but now it's that there's five countries that produce an awful lot of great players. You just say in Tampa. I have a son who's up in upstate New York, and there was a tournament in Buffalo, and there was a Tampa Junior Lightning that flew in to play against them. So you can tell with the minor hockey growing that states that you always had Minnesota, you always had Massachusetts producing some players, but now you're seeing some of the states that. Until they got an NHL team and then some rinks, they were producing nobody.
Yeah. Now, how would you say, since I mentioned that earlier, how growing up, how difficult was it for you to do all that with the travel ball, how and all that and expenses? Did you have to go through that growing up? How was it that when it was you were growing up that you were
You know
able to
what?
play?
I'm sure it was expensive back in the day for my parents, but it definitely isn't to the demand of the financial demand now. It's definitely expensive. It's definitely if it's a it went from a 8-month sport to a 12-month sport, and for the parents to pay for that long, and it's starting at a younger age. So I think that I remember hearing a stat in Ontario going that if you're playing AAA, your parents are paying $30,000 in Ontario, so a year just on the hockey. So, you know, the the average can't play, and which kind of sucks. And there's a lot of people and a lot of ex NHLers that are trying to allow the average to play, and so that they do get a chance, because the talent level doesn't have a price tag on it, and you can get it doesn't matter what your parents do, you can still have the talent to play. And I think, I when Anthony Stewart, who's in Toronto, who's an ex NHLer, who's giving back and giving the opportunity to a bunch of kids in Ontario, which is good to see, because it is expensive, like you said.
For sure. So, besides your debut and your first goal, what would you say was your oh my god, this is my top of the line NHL, welcome to the NHL moment? Do you have that besides your debut and first goal? Oh yeah, and that hit on Bork.
Well, I got to when I did play in the NHL. I was a more or less a fourth line checker who fought. So I got into a bunch of scraps. I ended up fighting Brendan Shanahan, who's a guy that I looked up to as a kid, and still do. He's the president of the Leafs, but situations like that. But I only had 4 goals, but one of them was a 2-on-1 slap shot goal against Patrick Waugh, which to me is, I played street hockey goalie, and I was Patrick Waugh 150 times, and I scored on Patrick Waugh when I was a kid, and then to get a chance and the opportunity to score on him in a game is something that is surreal and something you don't forget. And I didn't score much, but one of them is against him.
Yeah, not many players get to say they scored against him. I think he's one of the all-time best, beside next to Dominic Hasek and Martin Brodeur, who were the ones that I remember growing up mainly. Those
Mm-hmm.
guys. So yeah, not too many players can say they scored a goal off him. And
Yeah,
you're
so I
one.
think that would be, outside of the others, would be my wow.
Uh, so with your tenure there in the NHL between the two stops and then, of course, Columbus. What would you say was um, best fan base that you were up against or you played for? What would you say was the best fan base?
Well, I definitely, I just one because it's the NHL. Two, I was there the longest. But Columbus, we weren't a team that won every night. We didn't have that many wins throughout the 80 game schedule, but we had. I think I remember, we had 40 some sellouts in a row, which the crowd was one. They were just kind of learning the game, and two, they were appreciative of just being there and enjoying the event. So and now they're a competitive team that that's making the playoffs and making runs. So they've earned their stripes, and they deserve to cheer because they did cheer for us when we weren't doing as well. So I would have to say that Columbus was the fan base there was great. There's in Europe they cheer in different ways. Some countries they sing the whole game while they're bouncing. There's no sitting down. So some of the crowds that weren't as big, but there was some some interesting things to see with the crowd in Europe.
So, like you said, obviously you were part of that expansion team, the coming into Columbus. Do you see the NHL expanding some more because they obviously expanded to Las Vegas? So, do you see like teams that they got rid of before, like maybe Atlanta or Hartford again, maybe getting a franchise? You see any of those
Yeah,
cities back?
there's always inkling and rumors about Quebec, Hartford, Atlanta, and at some point I think that they will expand. I just don't know when. I think that I'm sure that Gary Bettman doesn't want 40 teams, but who knows what the number is, but I'm sure 40 is too many. But is there room for one or two more? And if you could predict the future, you don't know if Arizona is going to stay in the league, and then you're going to have to replace them with someone else. So I think there's some things up in the air, and I'm sure they have a number, and they're just waiting. 40 wouldn't
Right.
be it, but
That's right,
another
because
team or two might be.
Arizona's in trouble. They can't find
Yeah.
they're not paying the bill.
Yeah, who knows there? I'm sure
Yeah,
there's two sides to the story, but yeah, who knows?
exactly. So like you said, you jumped around from team to team. Uh do you have a favorite destination of the minors from the AHL, those teams that you played for? Was there a destination that you preferred better than the most that you were a part of?
Yeah, I didn't stay in the minors in one team too long to get to a place where you have an emotional attachment. I did enjoy parts of most of my years. I wouldn't live in most of the cities, but I do have an attachment to uh, Tampa's farm team now, which is in Syracuse, but it was Columbus's farm team there. I do have a son that lives there, and I'm there quite a bit, and I'm still friends with the president of the Syracuse Crunch team there, and I'm around there, and I go into the rink and see that. So I would say that Syracuse would be the one that I do have the most attachment to in later years for sure.
Now, I'm sure you still follow the game. I got to ask you about my Bolts. They're back-to-back champs from ah, the I want to say 2020 year, which is the COVID year, and last year. Do you see them repeating this year? I know it's hard to even go back to back, but I know it's even harder to go back to back to back. Do you see that happening this year?
When you look at Tampa Bay, you look at their when you look at a playoff team, you look from the goalie out, and they have strong goalie, they have big, strong D, and they have the talent up front. I think that Kucherov might be one of the most skilled players with the best hockey sense. Right up there with the best in the league. And then the acquisitions that they made to replace the third line and get some depth that you need in the playoffs. I think that one, they know how to build a team. Two, they know how to keep the team intact and replace what they need to at certain times. I think that they have a chance. I think Calgary's going to make some noise in the playoffs, and Colorado's, they haven't won yet, but there's going to be a year where they win, and who knows if it's this year. But I think that Tampa would be one of the favorites for sure.
Yeah, Yzerman left them in good hands, didn't he, before he left? That
Yeah,
team was going downhill after they won the first cup in 04. That
I
team,
think any team that has Hedman playing 30 minutes a game is going to be with a pretty good goalie is going to be a good team. But they have a lot of elements of a good playoff team. As obviously they've won 2 in a row, but I think that they haven't slowed down, and they definitely would be one of the favorites for sure.
Now, do you see a wild card team coming into play and beating, like, basically? And let's just go with this. How about a wild card team upsetting the top favorites, like the Bolts, like the
You might not like to hear it, but it might be their neighbors that do it to them.
who?
Panthers.
Oh, yeah. I can't forget about them. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
They've made some acquisition. They're a strong team, so I like Florida. I like watching Barkov especially, and I think that if there is a team that could beat them, it could be right there.
Well, yeah, because in the regular season they fight them hard, and they beat. I mean, I don't think the Bulls have a winning record against them at all during the regular season. They fight them hard.
Yeah, and the Tampa does have the advantage because they know how to win, and Florida's just up and coming, and really, they say you have to lose before you win. So I think that who knows, but anything can happen, and Florida will need a hot goaltending to overcome, to go real deep. But they'll, you can get goaltending that is unexpected, like St. Louis did the year they won, and with Binnington and stuff. So I think that if Florida can get a hot goalie, then they have a chance.
So who do you see? I know it's still early, and the playoffs are about a month and a half away. What teams do you see in the playoffs besides the Bolts and the Vegas Knights? Those two, which are always top of the line favorites. Who else do you see in the playoffs?
Well, going deeper, I would, the Vegas, the Tampa, that you can never count the Bruins out. They need a hot goaltender as well, but you can never count them out. The Calgary Flames are big and strong and built for the playoffs, I think, and they're on a roll with Markstrom in net, who's playing really well. Colorado's got high skilled and a good team with a lot of good skill on defense, and I still say the Panthers and Tampa, but I still think Tampa's got to be one of the favorites just because of their back end and their goaltending.
Now, back to when you played, how fast do you think the game has gone now compared to when you played? Because I'm watching it. I watched it in the 90s. It was fast paced, but it's not as fast paced as now. Do you see that as a former player that nowadays the players are a lot faster than what they were in the 90s?
Not even close. Like, they're so fast now. They're so talented. The physical game is gone a little bit more than back in the 90s, but it comes back in the playoffs a bit, and you got to be big and strong. But the skill level and the speed of the game is crazy. I couldn't play nowadays. My game wasn't speed, and if I'm building a team, it's size and speed. And if they don't have size, I need speed. So it's everyone needs the speed, and it's crazy how fast they are. Even if you watch the kids nowadays, how fast and skilled they are. I think that one thing is missing is their hockey sense and being able to. Marty St. Louis said a good saying when he came in. If you're playing in the present, you're behind. Meaning you have to play in the future, know what's going to happen, and react that way instead of reacting in the present time. And I think that is leaving the game a little bit with these kids. I think that their speed and skill is crazy, but they are lacking a little bit of the hockey sense, in my opinion.
Now, that was a bombshell, if you ask me. I know the Canadians fired their coach, and that was a bombshell. I knew St. Louis wanted to do something in the league. I don't know if it was coaching or being a GM like Yzerman, but that was a bombshell drop. I would not expected him to go to Montreal and coach them. Do you see them turning around quickly? Because I know they were. I mean, I know they were horrible why they got rid of their coach, and the players weren't playing for the coach anymore. So they had to make a move and bringing in St. Louis, who's one of the all-time great Lightning players. Do you think he can turn that team around?
Yeah, I think that they're definitely going to go upward. I think can you predict them to win the Stanley Cup in the next 10 years? Probably not. Will they improve? For sure. Does Marty know what he's doing? Absolutely. He's one of the smart as a player. He's one of the smart hockey minds that played. He had to be. He was tiny in a big man's game back in the day, and he excelled. And everyone knows what he did. He started out in the minors just because of his size and had to work his way through. So he knows what it takes. I think that they will get better. I don't think they'll ever be a contender in the near future for sure. But it's good to see that those guys stay in hockey and get the opportunity. I think that he was coaching his kids team with the GM's kid in Connecticut, and that's kind of where it started. But I think that the guys like him. I think the systems he's putting in place, they are improving. But to have them making a run, I wouldn't put any money on that one.
Now, after you retired, did you want to get into coaching or broadcasting, stay in the game, or did that not interact with you at all?
I do some scouting. I do some one-on-one skills with players. I don't coaching to me isn't something that it really interests me unless it's my own kids. But I do like scouting. I do like evaluating talent. I feel like I do have an eye for it and understand what it takes. Just because I played in pretty much every league in the world and understand how it goes about. But there's little things that I try to teach the kids coming up that you only learn from experience. So it's something I do like giving back. I don't want to coach. I don't want to be committed to that, but I love watching young talent and seeing where they end up.
Now, I know we just recently I saw this. I think this was a few months ago. I know you heard of it too. Um, Unfortunately, this was very tragic, and I know you know what I'm talking about with the high school kid that lost his life due to the skate going across his neck.
Yeah.
Did you unfortunately ever witness anything like that? Because I know this game is brutal, and that just I've heard of stuff like that before, but nobody dying from that. I know they've been seriously injured, but not that. That was the first time that I heard of anybody dying from something like that. Did you ever witness something like that while you were
I
playing?
did witness it on TV. I did watch Clip Malarchuk when he was in the NHL, and it happened. He didn't end up dying, but it did affect him for years later and into his retirement. But it's something that the skates are so sharp, and if you just run your fingers to see if they're sharp, and they can split your finger open. So it's something that we've all thought of, and we're scared of happening because there's feet and hands and everything flying around. I was playing in Columbus, and Christian Schnubel went to give me a hip check, and I lifted my leg to kind of squeeze by him, and as I planted my foot back onto the ice, I'd cut his wrist, and it cut the artery, and he was out for 3 months, but the blood was squirting. He was trying to hold it going off. He didn't didn't get lose too much blood, but there was an opportunity where he probably could have. I remember going into the dressing room after and taking my skate off, and we had little holes in the bottom, and my whole boot was full of blood. That's how fast the blood came out, because it's basically a knife on your feet that you're dealing with. So it sucks that it happens, but you'd almost think that it would happen more.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, obviously, you said you weren't that much of a fighter, or obviously penalty minute wise. Uh, do you think NHL is much better now that they're trying to get out from the fighting? I know they're still fighting, but it's not like what it was when you played. It is. when there is fighting, it's like entertainment purposes. No, the players respect each other. They don't hate each other like they used to or whatever. You as a former player, what do you think of that? With the fights now becoming like more of entertainment value instead of players actually hating each other, like when you played.
Well, I'm old school. I believe there's a spot for it. I think it cuts down the stick work when you do have a guy that will do some enforcing and set the rules and police the game outside the game. I said the game has gone to a level where you can't just be a fighter when 10 years ago or 15 years ago you could just be a fighter and play your 3 4 minutes and continue on. But now if you do like to be physical and you do like to fight, you still have to be able to play the game. And I think that you know Mike Wilson, who is one of the guys that people don't like watching or hate. I think that all teams going into the playoffs would love to pick a guy up that brings that aspect and can play, but can throw the body around, and if he has to fight, he can fight. So I think that there is a place for it. Is it the same as it used to be? Absolutely not.
Uh, what would you consider yourself as though player wise when you play? What would you consider yourself? Because I know you weren't a fighter, you weren't in the penalty box as much, so you didn't get penalties, and you weren't obviously a scorer like you wanted to be. So what would you consider yourself as a player?
Well, it's funny because in the American League, I was a point guy. I was the first power play. I was leading my team in scoring, and then when I did get called up, when I got called up to the NHL, I was a checker, and I did end up, I did have 20 fights in the NHL. So I did, and I only played 93 games. So I did have to do some fighting. But when I was down in the American League, I was more of a goal scorer.
Now let's talk about Hall of Fame. I want to ask you: is there any players that you know that you played for or against that should be in the Hall of Fame that aren't? And the other part of the question is, who in this day and age of players do you see making it in a Hall of Fame?
Yeah, for sure. Like the top guys are first ballots. You know, like I said earlier in the podcast, like Brad Richards is right on the edge. I think that he has a chance. I always giggle and joke that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, just not the Hockey Hall of Fame. But they're the McDavids and the superstars are the guys that get in there, and you have to not. It's an honor, and you have to be good. And it's there's some really good players that haven't got in for whatever reason, whether it's been the competition that year or whatnot. So it's interesting to see who gets in, and sometimes you wonder why he got in and another guy didn't. But there's a process, and they know more than we do.
Do you any names from when you played that you know should be in?
Yeah, I don't really offhand, because the ones that are automatic are in there, and the ones that are borderline, you could argue either way. So I think that I don't have any right offhand.
What about besides from Ovechkin and Crosby and obviously Austin Matthews, like you said? Any else from today's age you see can making it besides those three?
Yeah, I think you're going to see the you might see a couple bolts, with Stamkos and Hedman, and I think you'll see Draisaitl and McDavid. There's guys that are definitely going to be guys that get in first time ballot, and those the superstars, and then there's guys that are going to knock on the door that you could argue either way, and even Mitch Marner, if he continues putting the numbers up and they end up winning a few cups, because I think that's one of the criteria is,
Yeah,
did you win as a team, and
yeah.
so who knows? It's interesting to watch. I love watching the top players on each team play. I think that the skill level and the hockey sense is crazy with the top guys on every team. I'm not an Oiler fan, but I love watching them play because you get to see Draisaitl and McDavid on the ice all the time.
What do you think the NHL can do to better their game to help promote their game? Obviously, I know we talked about that they're doing a lot better than what they were in the '90s by expanding everywhere. But game wise, what can they do to get people? to appeal more to their sport?
Well, I think that they're doing a good job. The game is getting faster. The players are getting more skilled. I think we as fans like to watch the rough stuff, and it's reality, and it's not coming back. It's leaving the game, and but it's I think that we as hockey fans have to change your brain and look at this how fast the game is and how talented the players are, because the game has grown in those two aspects, which are the two best aspects of the game, is speed and skill, and the game has never been this fast, and this players have never been this skilled. So it's fun to watch, especially, it might be a little harder for the new person that doesn't really understand and can appreciate how talented they are. But as an ex-player, just watching these kids and men play at this level is crazy to me.
So, do you like the fact that they got rid of ties? I hated ties when I growing up watching it. I hated ties. That uh, I like the whole format now with shootout after overtime. I like that, and they got rid of ties. You, as a former player, do you like that better than actually tie? Because tying is, to me, like, you lost basically. To me,
I watch a game now, and I'm like, it's tied going late, and I got my fingers crossed, hoping it does go into overtime. And the shootout is a shootout. I
I like
enjoyed
that better.
I enjoyed doing it, but I love watching the 3-on-3. I think that there's games where there's 5 2-on-1s, one after another, going end to end, which to me is very exciting. I love watching the talent take over, and it's fun, and that sometimes there's plays that, because it's 3-on-3, there's different strategies where they take it out of their own end. But I really enjoy it. I hope for overtime, and then it's the shootout. The goalies are so good. It's good to see, but I really do like the overtime more so than the shootout.
So, how many more years do you see? We talked about Ovechkin and Crosby a little bit earlier. How many more years do you see them playing? How many more years do you think they got left?
Well, you don't see many players play into their 40s. They're hitching, they're above 35 now, but both of them are elite players in the league. And I think that if they keep going injury free and they keep staying in shape, I don't know. Like, people said that Ovechkin couldn't play till he's 40 because of the way he plays, but he's doing awful good. And you look at Sid, who everyone wants to jump on his back and say, oh, he's going downhill, and then all of a sudden he's always in the top 10 in score, and he takes the Penguins from regular season average to a team that contends in the playoffs. So it's something that I hope, especially Sid, I hope he never retires, because I enjoy watching him. But at some point, probably in the next 5 or 6 years, he's gonna be out of the game, and then there's gonna be the next guy. And it looks like McDavid's that guy right now, and or at least one of them. And he's a guy that is crazy good. He's so much faster than everyone else in the league, and he's does his stick handling, shooting at that speed. So I think that even when you watch him, there's the players on his own team and against him are in awe when they watch him.
So now I gotta ask you about my other unfortunate favorite team, which is the Ducks. What went wrong with them? What can they do to go back to their Stanley Cup form that they were like years ago? What can they do? Like, what more do they have to do?
Well, it's a tough league to build a team. And like you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, they've been trying to build a Stanley Cup winning team since the 60s. So it's not an easy thing to do. I think that when you do when Anaheim won their first couple, they had Pronger and Niedermeyer. I think you have to build from and then they had the goaltender. I think you got to have big D that play a lot of minutes, that they're top in the league, and then you have a goalie. I think that we put too much emphasis on the forwards and scoring goals, but in the playoffs the goals are down, and it's the defense that wins the games. And I think that you have to, like Tampa, you have to have the big strong D that can play.
now I'm gonna put you on the spot here, okay? Um, the hockey movie wise, I've seen them all. I'm gonna give you two: Mighty Ducks, the franchise, and the Miracle on Ice movie. Which one? Which one was better for to you? I know you've seen them like I have. So which do you think was better?
I like the both. I saw a lot of the Mighty Ducks with my with my kids, and I really enjoyed the game. Uh, I like I like watching Miracle because I was 5 when in 1980 when they won, and didn't really get to see it, and it shows the underdog winning there, and it's something that I always joke with the American guys in my team that if Canada had a movie, we would have, or made a movie for every time we won, we would have a library full of them. But I think they were both good movies. I really do. I think they I think that Mighty Ducks is for a younger crowd, and get them in the game, and then the Miracle is something that that anyone can watch, young people and older people. I think that yeah, but my favorite movie of all time, hockey movie, Slapshot or Youngblood.
There you go. There you go. I saw those too, so I forgot about those, but I just had to the two off the top of my head. I had to ask you. So now I'm going to leave you off on this. I asked this to everybody. It's a two-part question. If you were coaching, I know you only wanted to coach your kids. But if you were coaching, like teenagers, minors, whatever, college kids, etc., if you were coaching them, what would you tell them to get to where you were at, the level that you were at? And the other part of the question is define your career in one word.
That's the second one's going to be a hard one, but I just feel like don't give up on your dream, but you have to put the work in. I think that people that sometimes have the talent that don't put the work in don't succeed, and I think the work ethic is part of being a talent. I think that the average guys that play in the NHL have a work ethic that's beyond none, and I think the superstars, especially nowadays, have a work ethic that is beyond. You look at McDavid and Crosby, and the captains are the guys that are in the best shape. They play the most minutes. So that there's Nathan McKinnon who has a full 24-hour regimen with coaches, sleep coaches, dietitians, and I think that the game has evolved where you have to have the work ethic and give up things that other teenagers like doing it, like whether it's going to parties in the summer when you should be training or whatnot. I think that's one thing I would say: never give up, but have the work ethic. And my career in one word, I don't know. That's a good one. I would say legendary, but not everyone else would.
Hey, if you think legendary, hey, might as well. I mean, you did travel everywhere.
That's my own reflection, but that's there would be a lot of argument there.
Well, you did travel everywhere, so it can't get more legendary than that, correct?
Yeah, maybe the best word is experienced.
There you
So
go.
maybe that might be it.
There you go. There you go. I couldn't have said it any better. So I do appreciate your time. It was fun. I will send you the episode as soon as we're done. Now, and plus, I'll keep in touch with you. I'll stay in touch with you. Feel free to come on as many times as you want. I appreciate it. Talk some hockey with
Yeah, for
you.
sure. Reach out anytime. I enjoy talking, and it was fun,
Definitely.
Byron. It was
It
awesome.
was fun. And if you know anybody, please send them my way. If you know any players, like we talked about text during text, please send them my way. I'm always looking for more interviews. I'd appreciate it. But until then, it was fun, and I will send you this episode to share. So it was fun. I thank you.
Perfect. Sounds
Perfect.
good. Stay in touch, bud.
Will do. You have a good night. All right. Stay safe.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye.